Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today we're going to talk about one of the most asked questions that I get on my YouTube channel. That has to do with tackle storage. Everything from how do I store tackle down here in the basement bait shop to how do I organize and store tackle in my boat? Do I keep separate tackle boxes for trips? Do I keep separate boxes for bank fishing? So many different ways to go with this question, but I figured what I would do is give you a general mindset as to how I like to store my tackle. And before I dive into this, this is what works for me. It does not mean that it'll work for everybody. I recognize everybody's situations are different. The way you fish, the type of fishing, the species that you fish for, everything requires a little bit different storage. So this is just my mindset. If this helps you, great. If you think you've got a way to store tackle that will help other people, put it in the comment section because I'd love to hear from you too. I can't tell you the number of times I've found out about a product or I've seen somebody store tackle that just makes sense, and that's what I rotate and gravitate to. So I'd love to hear from you guys as well. So let's just talk general specifics. So keep in mind, I fish for a living. I like to have a lot of tackle with me for my tournaments. I don't like to show up short on tackle. And I don't generally show up to a body of water where I'm like, I know I'm doing this, right? I don't, depending on time of year, depending on season, every time I show up to a tournament and I feel like I know what I'm going to be doing, 9 out of 10 times, that can be thrown out the window and I revert to other things that I brought with me that I never would have dreamed of that I was using. Conditions change, you know, the water levels change, everything changes. So I like to carry a bunch of tackle with me. Generally speaking, what I like to do is carry boxes. I carry specific boxes. So this one I've got labeled shallow crankbaits. These are all basically shallow running crankbaits. Everything from 6 foot of water or less. For the most part, it's like square bill style stuff. And one of the reasons I'm doing this video is because this is an older box. It's not a waterproof box. I'm really trying to gravitate mostly to waterproof boxes. And as you can see, this one is just overflowing. It cracked throughout the season. I taped over it. It's time to replace this box specifically. But generally speaking, what I like to do is carry with me labeled boxes for a specific type of lure. So I have a shallow running crankbait, medium running crankbait, deep running crankbait, and then it switches over to, you know, everything else. So I'll have vibrating jigs, I'll have a spinnerbait box, I have a top water box, I have, you know, just looking over here now, I have basically all of my hard baits, and I have a separate terminal box. All of the hard baits have their own box. Soft plastics, I've gravitated to using like bigger plastic bags, like the heavier bags. I've got one laying here. This is an older one that I'm weeding out, but this was just one of the Bass Mafia tackle bags. I'll put types of soft plastic in these bags. So specifically, maybe I'll have one bag that'll be like toadstool baits. I'll have another bag that'll be finesse worms. I'll have another bag that'll be flipping baits, right? So things like that. I'll break it up similar to how I use the boxes. It's just for bags of soft plastic. Now, the type of box changes a little bit too. Like I said, I'm trying to switch over from kind of some older boxes. I'll show you one I've got. So I'm switching a lot over to these. These are the stowaway waterproof boxes. These are the Plano ones. Part of the reason is because you can actually get a really good deal on these at Tackle Warehouse. They actually sell them in 4-packs now. I think, I should have looked before the video. I think they're $50 for a 4-pack. No, $60 for a 4-pack. But if you want the non-waterproof ones, I think it's $30 for a 4-pack. So you can buy them in bulk. You get a better deal. Generally speaking, for me, I'll go through a handful of cases each year. I'm really trying to go almost entirely to waterproof at this point, but this is the process I'm in right now with it being my off season. I'm going to take everything out of here, go through all the baits, figure out the baits that need maybe new hooks, new split rings. Occasionally I'll have a few baits that may have put back in here with water and there might be a little bit of rust. I'll just clean them up, put them in a new box if they need a new box, and go that route. So that's kind of the process I'm in. But as you can see, I labeled this one shallow crankbaits. Now, that's not always the case though. Let me see. So in some instances, I have specific boxes for techniques. So here's an example. This is a shaky head box. This is going to be one that I'm replacing as well because it's not a waterproof one. It's just an older box. I got some cracks on it. Shaky head box. So if I open up this is a technique specific one now. So I've got a bunch of the worms that I like to use, and I got all the hooks that I like to use for the shaky head. So it's kind of a one kit box. I do that a lot with more of my items that have, you know, a specific couple of different baits and a specific couple of hooks. So I got a shaky head box. I have a drop shot box. What else do I got? I have a tube box. So I've got, you know, tube jig heads with a handful of tubes. I've just got specific boxes if I need to grab a box. I've got a swim bait box, like a boot tail swim bait box that just has some jig heads. Things that, you know, I really feel like I can have a handful of different baits, a handful of different heads, cover the gamut. I can just throw that in without having to say, grab a box specifically of boot tails, grab a box specifically of heads and terminal tackles. So I do have technique specific boxes. And then on top of that, I have a few here, like here's another technique specific. This is ledge baits. So if I'm going to a place like Kentucky Lake, where I know, you know, I'm going to be fishing ledges if it's, say, a June tournament, you know, I'll have a handful of different things, everything from, this box weighs literally probably 10, 15 pounds. I've got spoons, some big cranks, some heavy, like shaky head stuff, some hair jigs, just a little bit of everything that I know I could need. I have everything for the ledge fishing in one place, and from that standpoint, that's all just works out perfectly for me. Lastly, though, I thought I grabbed it. So I do make some boxes specific for the lakes that I'm going to. This is rare, but I do it. So one lake is a lake like Okeechobee. I will have a box specifically for Okeechobee where I've got some heavy weights, some of the plastics I like. I've got a couple top waters, a couple of frogs, and a couple of vibrating jigs. I mean, it's literally like, you know, it's a deep 3700. And from that standpoint, I have almost everything I could need within just that one box. And the whole purpose is when I go to a place like Okeechobee, I can pull that box out and I have almost everything at my fingertips in one box. I really like that. It is very rare though to have a specific box for me. I think I've got a handful of different lakes. On top of that, what I'll do is I'll put in those boxes, if I feel like I've got a very specific bait or color, that'll go in those boxes as well, because it makes it easier for me to find that versus, say, if I've, you know, let's say I've got a specific plastic color that I like, a specific bait. Way easier to go in the Okeechobee box than to pull out that bag full of flipping baits, dig through it to find that one specific color. Just works for me. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but it does work overall. So let's see what else. Then I've even got a couple of boxes specific for species, and this one, this is a crappie box that Duke helped me put together. He does like to play around. He loves these edge boxes because you can remove the trays, put them in other boxes, but we've got like a specific crappie box. So if I'm going crappie fishing, I can grab this. I've got everything I know I need, everything from hooks, jig heads, small plastics, slip bobber, stops, I mean, it's literally a to-go. We've got the bobbers. Everything is in here to go for crappie. So I can grab that quick and I can go. Now, one thing I will point out, that's my boat storage. Those are like my boxes that are ready to go for tournament fishing, for actual, you know, use on the water. a lot of these boxes that I'm replacing that are cracked, I'm not actually going to throw them out. If they're still decent, like that one that's cracked, I'll probably get rid of that. But if they're just going to be used for storage in the house, that's different. I'm not as concerned about those being waterproof because they're not going outside. So I'll use those to take baits that I'm not going to put in my tournament boxes. I'll put them in these boxes. Generally speaking, I'll label those as just specific, top water, crankbait, whatever it is, I'll put it in that. But they're not generally in as nice of boxes. They're used boxes that have been beaten up, but they're not going to get water in them in the basement, and they just make it easy for me to swap out. So that's kind of the fishing stuff. I mean, you can see here's another one. I don't do much fly fishing, but I've got one little fly box with all my dry flies in it. So if I open this guy up, you can see we've got dry flies. Duke has apparently put in a ice fishing weight as well, and I dropped a dry fly. But so I've got that. The other thing I'll point out though is from a storage perspective, I also use a bunch of other storage items. Like I use a lot of the waterproof guide series boxes, which are deeper, bigger, various size boxes, I guess. But like this is everything for my GoPro equipment. I've got to go through that. I've just threw a bunch of extra stuff in there right now, but it's a waterproof box, hard case. It just supports it a little bit better. And I'll have a couple of those for like tools and stuff in the boat as well, just to keep everything I like to be as organized as possible where I can just swap in boxes and swap out boxes. But ultimately, that's kind of my process. Now, again, that's what works for me. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody. I know some people like to take all their plastics out, put them into trays so that the baits remain perfectly straight. I'm not a big fan of doing that. Like I've always thought that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me unless I'm using one or two soft baits and that's it. Meaning if I really like the Berkley Pit Boss and I want to have 8 different colors all laid out right there and I want to restock that tray, I can do it. I just like to keep them in the bags. I think they maintain their scent a little bit better, and I try not to cram them in there where they're going to be wrinkled after a while, but some people like to lay them all out. Totally get it. It's whatever works best for you. The other thing I will say too that I like a lot of the deeper boxes. Let's see if I have my terminal box. Where is my terminal box? I don't know offhand. Oh, is this it? No, but here's a good example. So this is a jig box. This is the water, and this is one of the reasons I like to use the waterproof boxes. So this is a jig box, and you can see I like to keep the jigs. This is the same thing with terminal tackle. I like to keep them all in the original packaging so that, you know, I don't ever have to dig around and be like, is that a 3/0 hook or a 4/0 hook? Is this the 3/8 ounce jig or is it a 1/2 ounce jig? I like to package them right in the box with the card still so that they're in the original packaging. It just makes more sense for me. Some people like to take all the terminal pieces out and put them into different containers, you know, that way they have, and then they'll write 1/0 hook, 2/0 hook, 3/0 hook. I get it. Like if that's what works, that you can be really organized from that standpoint too. I just like to keep them all in the original packaging so I know, one, that the hook has been brand new and not used because I don't put a used hook back in one of those. But two, I just know that they're not going to be mislabeled at that point or potentially get put in the wrong compartment. Works for me, but the waterproof cases are really important for that because if you have cardboard, you don't need that getting wet. If it gets wet, it'll just absorb the moisture. So the waterproof work really well with that. Hopefully this helps. I feel like it's all over the place, so maybe it's just more confusing for some of you. But I like using all different trays for very different specific purposes. And if you've got questions, throw it up in the comment section. I'm going to get back to organizing my tackle, getting everything put into place for the start of next season, which feels like it's a long ways away. It'll come up fast, especially with the holidays in place. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.